Uber told its employees, you gotta get on AI. Use it as much as you can. They made it a competition. They even built a leaderboard so folks could see who was using it the most. And by April, as it turns out, they burned out the whole budget for the whole year. So the budget for 12 months got burned in 4. So now every single Uber employee is capped on how much they can use AI tools. They follow the rules. They went along with the request, and now they got in trouble.
Okay, an entire year's AI budget burned in 4 months. Let's get into it.
All right, so here's what actually happened for those of you not aware. Through late 2025, Uber rolled out these agentic coding tools to its engineers. Top of the line, Cursor, Anthropic's Claude Code. Those were the big two they were using. For those that are not aware, agentic means AI doesn't, they're not just auto-completing or we're prompting them like you and I would use ChatGPT. It goes on its own, writes and modifies code, reads files, writes on files, and there's minimal human babysitting, right? In theory. So very powerful. Apparently what's gonna change the whole way we work. Powerful, and remember this word, expensive, because you're paying per token. And when you're running an agent, you can run out of tokens fast.
Okay, so explain really quick, what is a token?
Basically, token is how AI will read our human word interactions. This is very simplified, right? So a token is a small chunk of text that the AI reads and generates. And roughly it's estimated to be, for English, 3/4 of a word. So if you got 100 tokens, that means you use about 75 words. And each one of those tokens, just like when you do laundry, you play video games, for those of you that were 80s or 90s babies, each token is costing money. What Uber did is to drive adoption. They built this leaderboard, like an internal leaderboard, right? Ranking teams by total AI tool usage. I think Meta did the same, right? They built this leaderboard, see which of the broskies are going the hardest with AI. So you use it more, you rank higher. So engineers, they were like, all right, challenge accepted. Some of them were generating thousands of dollars in token consumption individually per month. So by April, and here's where they got this aha moment, Uber CTO Praveen Nepali Naga told Information that the company had already burned through the entire 2026 AI coding budget. So like you say, the first 4 months of the year.
Okay, so we're talking about Uber. This is not some mom and pop operation. This is a massive company. And they're also a company that started out with like 30 plus $1 million loss in their first decade, and they like called it growth, right? So this is a company that is usually willing to spend to grow. So the fact that they're clawing back, I think, these token costs, that should be something significant, right, to pay attention to.
Why should we pay attention to this then?
After they saw that all these costs were being racked up, Uber set a hard limit of $1,500 per month per coding tool per employee. So you can stack them, like your Cursor budget, right, doesn't necessarily eat into your Claude budget. And then the other thing that they did was they launched a dashboard, right, a very professional enterprise dashboard so that you can watch your own spend and see what you were spending in real time, which is super ironic because previously they had these kind of vibe coded leaderboards where all the engineers were like trying to beat each other to max out their tokens. And now they probably have to use some like corporate dashboard to like track their token use. So it really is a big reversal.
The funny thing is about what started this reaction is that basically before they had this cap, the Uber CTO, he burned $1,200 in tokens during a single 2-hour internal demo. That's when they took notice. Finance was like, hey, okay, what's going on here? Look at all the money which just blew up. So then that's when they realized what some individual engineers, the tab they were running into, which was above this limit that now they want.
Yeah, I know. And it's like all these things are so connected because we also had a conversation in one of our previous episodes about like how stocks go up and down based on what these companies are announcing. And more AI usually means more capital, right? More value. So when they announced the cap, like the stock dipped by about 3%. It's kind of a lot just for one news item about internal operations. They reported that 10% of the company's code is submitted and built by AI agents, which like sounds maybe like a lot, but it's actually not a lot. Like Anthropic says that most of their code is written by Claude Code. Whether that's a PR point or not, we can debate it. But like if you think about it, if they're already burning through this much cash for 10% of their code, that signals that in order for these agents to be able to produce all of the code, they're going to need to either A, get more efficient, or B, cost less. And I think that they're in a really sticky spot right now because they don't see the current value for applying these expensive tools to creating code in their company.
You know that I hadn't thought about that, right? Like if they're blowing up a year's worth of budget in 4 months and that only took, which again, it still seems uber, it's a big thing, 10% of their code. Again, I'm not privy to the financials to know exactly how much
Right.
of an impact that is, but it seems like a lot, right? And then you
Yes.
have Anthropic, which in my opinion, sometimes they tend to be very poetic with reality
Yes.
and they have this way with words that I would not necessarily take at face value.
I wouldn't either, but this is a really interesting point. These coding tools, who do they benefit the most?
We want to see the
Yeah.
comments. Who are these AI coding tools you said?
Yes, the coding tools, right?
Mhm.
Claude Code and Cursor. So they're benefiting the AI labs the most. I speculate, many people speculate. The reason why these labs really leaned into coding is because it helps them with their internal product development. It helps them build a product faster, bring it to market faster. It also helps them on their race against each other to reach AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence, which is where
Mhm.
they're all sort of striving. They get it at a discount because they own it, right? They own the compute, they own the tools. They're not charging themselves an arm and a leg to use it. And so they get the most out of it. Whereas other companies, a big company like Uber, if they don't have their own chips, they don't have their own data centers, they don't have their own AI, they have to lease it from the AI companies, and they're at a big disadvantage.
So I think the real story here is sure, it's very tempting to say, hey, Uber blew out a bunch of money on AI. Haha, suckers.
Right.
Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But what I would say is catching my attention the most is that this company was spending like there was no tomorrow, going all in on the AI gospel. The AI is going to take over everything. And then they cannot show it. They cannot show this return of investment. And this is not, a Luddite company. This is
Right.
not, this is a very like tech forward company.
Yes.
So, and they're being skeptical about AI. So to me, this is sort of something to pay attention as we hear all the folks talking about AI solving everything. We have a real use case, a real work case of AI implementation that it's not working out as expected. So what went wrong here?
And you're right. There's a lot of people out there who are running around being like, look what Uber did. AI's expensive. What do we do? Right. It's kind of thrown the whole industry, kind of everyone, the whole world of work into a bit of a tailspin because they're seeing in real time that this strategy of just dumping all of your code into AI isn't working. But what I would say is that this is not just about code. Just chatting with an LLM, if you have some skills, it's not very token rich, right? You can use these tools very efficiently. You can choose the right tool, a smaller model to work on a smaller problem and save the fables of the world for your big strategic problems or your big challenges. But the costs of tokens are going up across the board, not just for coding. So Microsoft just changed its pricing model. They have a subscription for enterprises, around $30 a month. You can still use Copilot Chat, which is basically ChatGPT for within your subscription. But for their agentic tools, right, which are pretty early agentic tools, you can take tasks on your behalf, they're raising the rates on those. So companies who have Microsoft Copilot and have been using it for years now, and who are now just like starting to step into the world of agentic and seeing how they can have these bots take tasks and do them on their behalf when they're not even paying attention, now that's more expensive than ever. And I think we have to remember that all of this AI that we are using on a daily basis is subsidized by these labs who have an enormous amount of capital to bring these products to market. And to get us kind of hooked on them, right? Like you or I are, where we're like, what? I couldn't do my job without Claude or GPT, right? And then there's like this moment where they turn off the faucet and say, now that you're responsible for the token cost. So it's just kind of an interesting scenario because it's going to hit everyone and it's not just a coding problem.
No, absolutely not. It's not a coding problem. And I think, once again, it's about education, right? Because the word around the valley was token maxing, right?
Right.
Maximizing how many tokens you burn. All the losers are not token maxing. If you're an alpha, you're token maxing. These leaderboards were showing who was the maximum alphaist token maxer. And then they figured out, well, actually, this is not working out, folks. It's like everything, right? Like the metaverse, crypto, like there's always a lot of noise going out. And many times that noise is coming from folks that, get to make money out of it, whatever their position, right? Because also I could make a point for people being ultra negative about everything, also having an agenda. And maybe one day we'll do a video about that. But I think in education, right, like what we're going to see as this happens more and more, because we're talking about Uber, unlimited money. But what happens with a small mom and
Right.
pop shop or a small educational organization that they set
Right.
up an AI agent on their communication tools, and maybe it wasn't set up with the right model, or they're using, I don't know, Fable instead of something,
Like
just a little bit more
haiku.
chill. Yeah, haiku, something that it's not going to blow up. And I don't think you can set up haiku, actually, if you put Slack, Cloud on your Slack. I don't think haiku is one of the models you can pick. So let me know in the
Okay.
comments if you've tried that.
Sorry.
But it's about Sonso AI, but it's about education. I think
Yeah.
telling folks, teaching folks how to use the right tool for the right task, right? Like you don't need the most powerful model if you're just going to be answering an email. I mean, you can use your brain to answer an email still.
Yeah, let's not forget how to do that, everybody. Here's what I would say. I'd like boil it down to 3 things. Folks in the comments are always telling us, can you just give us practical advice and stop like waxing philosophical about all this stuff? So here's my practical advice. 1, assume costs are going to go up for the near term. For the long term, they'll probably go down. But we are in this sticky situation where costs are going to rise. So you have to just assume that is the case and plan for it. 2, internal guardrails. If you don't have a policy at your company, if your employees don't know anything about what models they're supposed to use, in which formats they're supposed to connect their data and connect their other tools that they're using, you have a problem. So go ahead and put that governance in place right now, today, and then you'll be at least protected from costs going up to a certain extent. You'll have a protective layer around you. And then the third one, as you mentioned, and as you know, you and I believe very firmly in this, it really is about education because this is complicated stuff. And the average person doesn't have time to like dig deeply into what is token maxing and how do I run a more efficient agentic loop and like it's just a lot, right? So what I would say is spend some time and money on your workforce to teach them the rules of the road so that they are using these tools not just efficiently to keep costs down, but also using them to produce better work. And there is a gap there in most companies with what people are able to do with the tools today and where they could go with them if they just had that education, that training in the interim. So lean in there, everybody. That's really the sweet spot right now. And if you don't have time or energy for a huge training program, we're going to link to a cheat sheet in the notes called How to Not Token Max. It's just a couple of mindset shift ideas and a couple of cardinal rules, things not to do when you're setting up your agents, things not to do when you're talking to your chatbots. It's a real quick read and it's a good way to kind of get yourself a little ahead of the competition.
To top that, I would say, again, use your effing brain. You can also pick among the models you could choose. It's like maybe my brain is the best tool for this task. Like sometimes actually we don't really need AI. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what it comes to, right? It's understanding
Yeah.
when's the right time and the right case, because definitely there's a lot of noise out there and folks talking and just saying things because they look good on a 15-second clip. And speaking of tokens, unlimited spending, and agents, we got an episode on what happens when an agent gets access to your credit card and does not need permission. So if you enjoyed this episode, keep the party going and keep on watching because there's a lot more from where this one came from. Subscribe for new videos every week and like because we need your validation and so does the algorithm. Have a good one. We love you. Bye.